Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up this hour on the most dangerous show on the airwaves. No surprise here, but a new poll shows that the majority of Democrats favor socialism, and another mass shooting in Seattle. And guess what? The cameras were off again. Will Mayor Katie ever learn her lesson? But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
It is very, very clear that Governor Bob Ferguson, Attorney General Nick Brown, and the rest of the Democrats who are in power are making an enemies list and going down it one at a time. The latest target of this is our friend Andrea Suarez and We Heart Seattle. Andrea got a little note in the mail saying she is now under investigation by the Department of Labor and Industries. She posted this video to social media last night.
In the past 30 minutes, I've picked up more than 25 hypodermic needles, caps, syringes. We've picked up 100 pieces of foil minimally in the last 30 minutes. Some of them had drug residue still in them. Thousands of pieces of used fentanyl. This is absurd. Somebody has taken the time to report We Heart Seattle for improper handling and collection of hypodermic needles and fentanyl paraphernalia, and the state of Washington has served me paperwork. I am under investigation for improper handling of drug paraphernalia in the city of Seattle. I have to provide accident prevention program, training materials for bloodborne pathogens, training logs, safety meeting minutes. We come out here as volunteers and do a service to the city, and I'm supposed to now produce disciplinary records? I'm gonna have to lawyer up. I'm gonna have to take time from doing the work I set out to do. We know we have done nothing wrong. We have protocols. We have that written and documented on our website. Personal protective equipment, pinchers, sharp blocks. We have not had any safety incidents. We're very proud of this work. We're not afraid of this, but what we are concerned about is the utter hypocrisy and time on the state who hands out the very needles and foil that I am being accused of improperly collecting that are littering our parks and shared spaces. I have to ask, where is this coming from? We are a household brand in the city of Seattle and Washington State doing vital work. We Heart Seattle is a private funded nonprofit doing volunteer work in our shared spaces. We Heart Seattle hasn't taken a penny of taxpayer dollars. The more momentum we have, the more under attack we are. If we stop doing this work, the needles and the foil will cause continued harm to seniors, disabled, children, animals, vulnerable populations using our parks.
Let's break this down a little bit more, shall we? So, King County, which gives out needles and syringes and the rubber band to tie your arm off and the spoons to heat up your heroin and everything else you need, all the drug paraphernalia to kill yourself, is not under investigation. But We Heart Seattle, a group of volunteers who go out and clean up the mess made by King County, made by City of Seattle, made by Washington State, using your taxpayer dollars, they're under investigation. So wait a minute. If I take my kids to a park in Seattle and I see there's a needle sitting on the slide I want my kids to go down, and I pick it up and I throw it out, can Labor and Industries hit me for improperly disposing of litter? For improperly cleaning up a needle now? Is that where we're at? It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Plus, how many reports have we done on all the different homeless, quote unquote, agencies out here and what happens inside their facilities with the murders and the rapes and the assaults and the theft and the drug use and the convicted felons who are out on felony warrants and everything else. The building, the little tiny home they use as a hot box to do all their drugs, their own very little gas chamber for drugs. All of that, not a violation. But Andrea Suarez and her team of volunteers that actually gets people into treatment and actually gets people help and doesn't take taxpayer dollars, they're now under investigation. I'm going to tell you how this is BS. Back when I was running companies, I used to deal with labor and industries all the time. Labor and industries is one of the most messed up departments in all of Washington state. The requirements they make you do are ridiculous. They're onerous. They make no sense. And they're also that Washington state can make money off it somehow. So I figured, let's find out what's going on with We Heart Seattle. What are the requirements they have for cleaning homeless encampments? So last night I spent a lot of time on their website. And I started looking, what's the proper way to clean up a homeless encampment? What's the proper way to dispose of needles? What's the proper way to do any of this? You know what I found on their website? Nothing. So how can you penalize her for violating labor and industries law if there's no regulations about any of this at all? Makes no sense.
So I have a park very close to my house.
Yeah.
It's a tiny park. It's not very big. There have been homeless in there in the past in tents and whatnot. Not very many. But if I was to go over there and decide, hey, I just want to be a good neighbor and I have this park next door, I want to clean it up. And I went over there with a bag and one of those, you know what? I've got one of those little grabber things so you don't have to use your own hands. It's because sometimes I'll clean the trash up around my cul-de-sac at the end of my street.
That's nice of you.
You know?
You're a good man.
Well, I mean, the garbage picks up and, kind of gets all over the place. Sometimes if I have some time, I'll go out there and do it. If I wandered up there and I saw some drug paraphernalia and I decided to use the little pincers to grab them, throw them away or whatever, am I in violation?
Yes. You would now be in violation. In fact, you know what? You just reminded me of something. So the day of service that Seattle does with the mayor where they all go out and they all clean up all these homeless encampments, all of them are now in violation. Every single one of them. But the agencies that give out the stuff, that put it on the streets, they're not in violation.
Right.
Which is insane.
And you're saying that if I was like, hey, I want to do this properly, you go on the website, you can't find anything that says, like, is there a number I would call and say, hey, yo, I'm doing my thing, but I don't want to break the law. So can you come here? There's a bunch of needles stacked over in the corner of this park. Can you come pick them up?
Well, Labor and Industries isn't going to come pick them up. You need the Find It, Fix It app for that.
So that's a Find It, Fix It. I've used the Find It, Fix It.
And we know how well the Find It, Fix It app works.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not great.
That's a nice way of saying it. Not great. That's a great way to put it. But here's something else. Andrea sent me some of the documentation she got from Labor and Industries. And one of them is by a woman who is an industrial hygienist. A what? Is that somebody who has a really powerful, like, pressure washer for your teeth or something? An industrial hygienist? What are we talking about here? Who does compliance for industrial safety and health investigator for the L&I Division of Occupational Safety and Health. And I thought to myself, this is a made-up term. This is made industrial hygienist. Wait a second. Problems are so bad around here with hygiene, you need an industrial hygienist to take care of it. This sounds like, the left is so good with these words, industrial hygienist. So I just took the title and I put it into the Google machine. You know what I found out, Kevin? Labor and Industries is now hiring industrial hygienists, which means they are literally creating an inspection department to go after people like Andrea Suarez, Christine Moreland from The More We Love, all of our friends who do this, because they are showing that they are more effective than the taxpayer-funded programs that give people drug paraphernalia, that release them back onto the streets, that keep them addicted. Industrial hygienist. Are you kidding me with this? So, clearly what's happening here is Homeless Inc. sees Andrea as a threat. And I know that there's different businesses that reach out to Andrea. I reach out to Andrea When the properties that I manage have issues, I reach out to Andrea and I say, hey, can you help me out? Can you come down here and do it? And guess what? The problem is solved. I don't use the Find It, Fix It app anymore. I reach out to Andrea or handle it myself, and that's a topic for another time. But they are threatened by Andrea. They are threatened by We Heart Seattle. They are threatened by Christine Moreland. They are threatened by The More We Love because they are doing the job better than government. They're doing it volunteer. They're doing it cheaper. They're more successful. And their programs, what? Anybody go into the department, downtown emergency services buildings? We've played those videos before where you see the squalor, you see the filth. Where's OSHA investigating these guys? Where's the Department of Labor and Industries investigating these guys? You want to get Homeless Inc. shut down? Let's call in OSHA. You guys want to play this game? Let's play this game. I have an idea right now for our audience. You guys want to have a little fun here? Go to the Department of Labor and Industries website. Go to the Department of Labor and Industries website. And I think what you should do is you should file complaints against Lehigh, Downtown Emergency Services, Share, Wheel, all the different Homeless Inc. organizations for the exact same thing they are claiming Andrea is doing. In fact, worse, you should say it's created all these health hazards. There's needles everywhere. There's crime everywhere. The police are there, especially if you live near one of these things. File complaints with Labor and Industries. I think I'm going to do that after the show today. I think I'm just going to take the documentation Andrea got, plug it into ChatGPT, have it spit out a few things tailored for each of these things, and just start reporting every Homeless Inc. facility. I think we should do that like when we blew up the hate crimes hotline. I think we should all do this. By the way, we do have the results from the hate crimes hotline, and the Ari's army is strong. I will tell you that, my friends. It's entertaining. I think if you are retired and sitting at home on your computer, I think you should go to the Labor and Industries website, and I think you should file a complaint against all these homeless agencies. Just do a quick Google search of all these homeless agencies here in Seattle and just file a complaint that they need to go investigate the facilities of every single one of them. Because this is the Democrats' game. They want to play this game. Let's play this game. But do you know why else you start an investigation into something like this? Because then you're trying to tar and feather Andrea Suarez and We Heart Seattle. Don't give money to that organization. They're under investigation. You don't want to be involved with something under investigation. That's the game. That's the whole game, to try and smear her. Because here, the allegation is worse than the crime. There is no crime. So they say she's under investigation. Wait till the Seattle Times gets a hold of it. Volunteer, nonprofit, homeless outreach organization under investigation for Labor and Industries violations. There's nothing there. And also, here's something else. Now Andrea has to prove she didn't violate a code that doesn't exist. How do you prove that you didn't violate something that doesn't exist? It'd be one thing if they had an actual thing on their website. Hey, here's how you have to do it. It's not there. How do you prove you didn't violate it? But this is the game. We've seen this play before. Democrats are predictable. Remember a few months back when all of a sudden Jim Brunner and the Seattle Times grabbed this nothing nonprofit organization that popped up to file PDC complaints against Brandy Cruz and Let's Go Washington, claiming that she was giving them an undisclosed campaign contribution by talking about repealing the income tax and protecting girls' sports and protecting parental rights on her show, even though those are her opinions. They're claiming it was an undisclosed campaign contribution to Let's Go Washington. Well, it's BS, but they were just doing that so they could say, investigation opened into Let's Go Washington. Investigation opened into Brandy Cruz and Undivided. Now, most people don't know that they tried to do the exact same thing to John Carlson and Kirby Wilbur when they were on KVI and they were working against the gas tax. And the people who supported that gas tax didn't like that John and Kirby, two conservative talk radio commentators, were talking against a tax. So they smeared them. And they said it's an undisclosed campaign contribution that you've given these guys. So now KVI is under investigation. Now the entire movement to stop the gas tax is under investigation. And they're still doing this nonsense on Friday, late Friday, Cairo 7 and Fox 13, months after this story already broke, now says formal investigation into Brandy Cruz and let's go Washington. This is the game. They try to smear you. This is the game. Now, mind you, I wrote a letter to the PDC, and I said there is nothing here about this complaint. People can voice whatever opinions they have, and it's already been decided unanimously by the Washington State Supreme Court in the case regarding Kirby Wilbur and John Carlson here on KVI. In fact, the ACLU wrote a letter supporting Kirby Wilbur and John Carlson in KVI. Do you think we'd ever get a Supreme Court ruling these days unanimous in our favor? Do you think the ACLU would ever write a letter backing any of us these days? But that's the game. This is the game. This is how they target you. This is how they smear you. They take away your press passes. They start auditing you. They start calling for investigations. They get the media to be mockingbirds and parrot their talking points. This is what they do to try and destroy you. You know what I did last night, Kevin? I was so wondering what they're going to come after me for next. I'm like, they're going to find a way to come after me. We all know this, right? So what's it going to be? So you know what I did? I went and looked up my old companies. I'm like, I closed those down, right? I went to the Department of Labor, Labor and Industries, all the secretary. I'm like, yes, I closed them. Because God knows what they would come up with. You haven't filed this. And they're all closed. Thank God. I checked everything last night because I do everything by the law. What could they possibly find on me? But they will make it up. Ari, you violated something with regard to this, that, the other thing. Good, show me where. Well, we can't. It hasn't been created yet, but you violated it. That's what they're doing to Andrea Suarez right now. That's literally what they're doing. That's what they're doing to Let's Go Washington. That's what they're doing to Brian Cruz, to Brian Haywood and Let's Go Washington. That's what they're doing to Brandy Cruz. That's what they're doing to everybody. It is insane. It is sick. It is twisted, and it's evil, and it's predictable. Predictable. I mean, what? You think they just took away my press pass for fun for the Washington legislature? You think they just ban Jonathan Cho from press conferences just for fun? No, it's because we're the ones who are actually calling out what's happening here in Seattle. We're the ones who actually speak truth to power. We're the ones who actually ask questions when we go to these. Why do we all now know that the Seattle police chief, former Seattle police chief Sean Barnes, didn't live in Seattle? There had been rumors, there had been reports, but when he didn't show up for the Bite of Seattle press conference, and they said an acting chief was filling in, a little radio host raised his hand and said, "Where's Chief Barnes?" Nobody else asked that question. Nobody else asked that question. And now you see what happened. They are petrified of us, and they are trying to shut us up. They are trying to shut us down. Every time Andrea Suarez goes out there and posts a video about all the trash she's collected, all the needles she's collected, it is an indictment of Homeless Inc. of how they have failed. And since the World Cup, it has only gotten worse here in Washington. We thought we might get a little reprieve. I thought we would have till the end of the summer. One of the few times in my life I was wrong. It is back with a vengeance. That's worse than it was before. Infinitely worse than it was before. Because Katie Wilson allows a permissive environment where you can do whatever you want. This is the game. This is the plan. And they're trying to scare off people from supporting us. Zach Abraham from Know Your Risk Radio. They are auditing him because he sponsors Brandy Cruz's show. And now they're auditing him. They try to scare off your sponsors. They try to silence you. This is the game. So let's have a little fun with them. I want you to go to the Labor and Industries website. I want you to do a list of the homeless agencies here in Washington, like the Low Income Housing Institute, like the Downtown Emergency Service Center, and I want you to start filing complaints. I want you to file the same kind of complaints they filed against Andrea Suarez. If you are home today and have nothing else to do, I want you to just file complaint after complaint after complaint after complaint after complaint. I want you to melt the internet I want you to break the internet doing this because I've had it with this nonsense. And then we do a PDR and we say, you had all these complaints. How come you didn't act on those and you went after Andrea? And here's something else to show you it's political. I reached out to Labor and Industries and I asked them for comment on this whole thing. The media guys had no idea what I was talking about, which means somebody in Labor and Industries decided this is how we get her. This is how we go after her. And that's exactly what they're doing. You want to know what's at stake this election cycle? You want more of this? If the Democrats get a majority, all we'll be able to do, a supermajority, all we'll be able to do is report on their insanity, not stop their insanity, and we'll become the true canary in the coal mine for the rest of the country about what happens under one-party rule, a total destruction of a once beautiful state. That is what is at risk this election cycle. You want all the companies leaving. You want all the people who make money leaving to be replaced with drug addicts on the street who are funded by taxpayer dollars of the few people who can't move, who are left. That is what is at stake this election cycle. Are you with us for the fight? Because you better mount up, my friends. We're going to be having more calls to action. We need your help because they are coming after all of us. And we need to show them there's a lot more of us than there are of them because I know you're out there. Speaking of the insanity of one-party rule, another mass shooting in Seattle. This time the cameras were also off. Is Katie Wilson going to learn her lesson? That and your calls when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. Looks like a lot of you want to weigh in on the segment we just did about the Department of Labor and Industries targeting We Heart Seattle and Andrea Suarez. Dan Smith says over on the text line, show me the man, I'll show you the crime. So true, so true. Luann says, hey, Ari, I just donated to We Heart Seattle. I challenge Ari's Army to donate whatever amount they can before the end of the show. Great idea, Luann. And also, I'll tell you something else. Andrea is going to be joining us at around 5:30 today with her story. So we'll do that. This one here, Dan Smith mentions target first, fabricate proof, invert justice. Exactly right. Matt always comes in with text of the day super early. Wasn't industrial hygienist mentioned in Piano Man right after real estate novelist? Yes. Yes. I'm sure those are the words. Exactly right. We go to the KVI studio line. Take a call from Steve in Puyallup. Steve, what's going on?
Hey, Steve. The Andrea should start a counter lawsuit. Don't we have a needle exchange program in Seattle, or did they change that?
Oh, no, we still have that. And in fact, it's not a needle exchange program. It's come up, walk up to them. I've done it. Walk up to them and say, I'd like a box of needles. And they say, how many boxes would you like? And you don't have to give them anything. So it's a needle giveaway program, not exchange. And it hasn't reduced transmissible drugs at all.
But anyhow, I believe it was written up as a needle exchange program, so we need to start finding the documentation for all the needles that are supposed to come back instead of being on the street. Andrea is going out there to clean up, right?
I agree. In fact, I got a better one. How about we talk to them about giving out all the stuff they do that helps people kill themselves? Hey, here's where your heroin injection site is. Maybe we just start reporting those locations. Appreciate the call, Steve. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the KVI studio line. Take a call from Darren in Gig Harbor. Darren, what's up, man?
Hi, I wanted to explain what an industrial hygienist is.
Yes.
I do a little bit of work with labor and industries in the construction side. And an industrial hygienist is basically they're there to go out and check on chemical substances like asbestos, lead, monitor how much is there, and make sure workers in the workplace aren't getting exposure. And bloodborne pathogens is something that's on their array of things that they do. So it's a very specialized degree. They're actually usually very smart people. So I would have to say that these people are looking, somebody's making them go in and look for, an alley to.
Yeah, probably they're sending them in to go look for pathogens is what they're going to claim. But then the real question is, why aren't you going into Downtown Emergency Services Center? Why aren't you going into those buildings which we know are disgusting? Why aren't you going into Plymouth Housing? Why aren't you going into any of these organizations that we know have massive problems, that we've seen the documented issues with them? Why aren't you doing that? And you're going after the lady who's trying to clean it all up. Darren, I really appreciate the clarification on that. Appreciate the explanation. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Meanwhile, switching gear over to what happened this weekend in Seattle. According to Como News, gunfire erupted in Seattle's Pioneer Square neighborhood early Sunday after a fight outside a bar spilled into a street near the First Avenue. Wow, we really are back to the old pioneering days of the Wild Wild West out here. A bar fight spilled out into the street in Pioneer Square, leaving one person wounded, multiple vehicles, and nearby businesses damaged. 911 callers reported shots fired in the area around Cowgirls, Inc. Well, we don't have real horses around here, so we're going to use the mechanical bull. I get it. I understand what's happening now. Everybody just wants to play cowboy from Cowgirls. I get what's happening here. Multiple officers responded to the scene, and you think afterwards they're going to start doing an investigation. Hey, who was riding the bull? Hey, who had too much to drink? Who opened fire first? Yeah, actually, you know what happened? The cameras aren't on. And why aren't the cameras on? Because they're in technically the stadium area, and they were turned off by Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson after the World Cup. So now you can't figure out who actually did the shooting. Sound familiar, doesn't it? Doesn't that sound like something we've discussed a whole bunch of times on the show here before? Seattle Police Officers Guild tweeted this out. Here we go again, Mayor Katie. Another violent shootout. 3 city surveillance cameras within view, all turned off by the mayor's order. SPOG warned what would happen when proven public safety tools were taken offline. Now Seattle is right back where we started. Deja vu. Also, a new study is out, a new survey taken of Seattle residents, showing that 75% of Seattle residents want the cameras turned on. When we talk about the silent majority, that means those activists are the other 25%. 75% want the cameras turned on. At what point, how many L's is Katie Wilson going to take? Well, actually, the biggest L, I don't know if you guys saw it this weekend. Kevin, did you see the video of her dancing this weekend? So Katie Wilson does her first public appearance, and she's dancing with a rapper. And shall we just say she looks like Elaine from Seinfeld with the thumbs and the kick and the whole. That's what she looks like. It is that bad. So still no suspects descriptions of the Bite of Seattle shooting. Nothing like that. Cameras turned off for this. But let's go try and dance with a rapper who's black. You really, really white girl, you, who has no rhythm on a good day. Yeah, well done, everybody. Really fantastic. We're being run by morons. Speaking of morons, a majority of Democrats favor socialism, according to a new study. We'll discuss it when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Representative Eric Swalwell. Remember the guy who allegedly banged a Chinese spy named Fang Fang and allegedly gave up state secrets and all that alleged? doesn't seem that alleged anymore. Oh, this is super, super bad. Okay, the FBI apparently developed evidence, according to Just the News, that a Chinese woman with direct ties to the country's intelligence service had potentially compromised a Democratic congressman from California with sex, foreign interns, and illicit donations while she was being recruited to become a bureau informant a decade ago. Hang on. The files chronicling the relationship between Representative Eric Swalwell and the Chinese national Fang Fang, also known by her English name of Christine Fang, were declassified by President Donald Trump and released Monday by the White House Government Transparency Task Force as part of a broader effort to unmask foreign threats to U.S. political and election systems. They show the FBI opened a predicated investigation, which is a formal law enforcement inquiry backed by factual basis or allegation that indicates a crime or national security threat already exists. Unlike unpredicated assessments, a predicated investigation allows agents to use advanced and intrusive methods like electronic surveillance or informants. Time out. I seem to remember Nancy Pelosi and Democrat leadership being asked about Eric Swalwell being reappointed to the House Intelligence Committee after all this. And they said they've looked at all the evidence, even the classified stuff, and there's no there. So they were lying. So Democrat leadership was lying. Would you like to know what was in this information? All right, here we go. Here's all the salacious details. Are you ready for it? The FBI initially wanted to investigate the congressman for a bribery scheme in which he exchanged donations from Fang Fang for her planting interns in his office, but eventually decided to narrow the case to see criminal charges only against Fang Fang for making illegal donations to the California Democrat through conduits. Swalwell, who always denied the allegations. In fact, one time he blew up during a congressional hearing when somebody shot back at him. Well, at least I didn't shtup a Chinese spy. He blew, I'm tired of this, blah, blah, blah. Swalwell admitted to having sex with Fang Fang. His staff placing Fang Fang's interns in Congress and not having a strong enough campaign finance system to detect the straw donations he allegedly passed through U.S. citizen conduits. The Justice Department declined to prosecute Fang Fang despite strong evidence of the illicit donations after she fled the U.S. as the FBI began interviewing her associates and raided her home. The early steps in the investigation were overseen in part by Jack Smith. Wait, hang on. So Jack Smith declined to prosecute the case, but went after Donald Trump for Russian collusion and all the other nonsense? Give me a break. Or was it documents? I can't keep track of all the nonsense they made up about him. The FBI was recruiting Fang Fang to be a confidential informant through an undercover agent, assigned her the code name Rusty Thumbs. I have questions about why. I don't want to know. I changed my mind. I don't want to know. They plan to hire her through a cutout company and was still evaluating her suitability as a confidential. So everybody knew that Swalwell was having this affair. Everybody knew it, including the FBI. Everybody knew it. But they figured, let's not expose it because maybe we can flip Fang Fang and maybe she'll come work for us. The FBI knew early on during the recruitment that Fang Fang was tied to China's Military of State Security, Beijing's notorious intelligence service. The Bureau also identified her parents as MSS agents, knew she was raising money for California Democrats, and was willing to use sex as a means of getting ahead in the world of U.S. politics. Well, who hasn't? Who hasn't, right? Right. This is twisted. So, wait a minute. Hang on a second here. So, Swalwell was lying the whole time? Oh, shock. I think the bigger indictment here is that Democratic leadership allowed him to continue remaining a member of the House Intelligence Committee. Who knows what secrets this guy passed on to her? It's one thing to say, hey, let this guy go or have him resign and then we won't press charges. No, this guy belongs in jail. He's a traitor to the United States, and he did it all for the nookie. That's what he did. This guy belongs in prison, assuming all this is true. I don't see why it wouldn't be, but we still have to say alleged, even with all this going on. Unbelievable. Yet so much not. We were so gaslit by the Democrats. There's nothing to see here. He's innocent. There's nothing here. It's just the Republicans making stuff up. He was stopping a Chinese spy and was putting Chinese spy interns in other offices in Congress. God knows how much our country was compromised by just Eric Swalwell's actions. But I got another question. How many other people, like his buddies, who are now up to their eyeballs in similar allegations, were doing similar things? I'm curious how deep this actually goes, how deep the corruption actually goes. Well, you know what? Soon this may not be a big deal in America. They might really enjoy the whole communist idea because a whole bunch of Democrats are now supporting socialism. According to CBS News, Democratic voters in the U.S. have a more favorable view of socialism than capitalism. The poll showed that among all those surveyed, the free market system is seen as a good thing, and over the left-wing economic system of socialism. So, overall, U.S. voters see socialism negatively, with 42% having a disapproving view of socialism, only 35% having a positive view. Now, mind you, the majority of Democrats, 58%, have a positive view of socialism. This is not the Democrat Party of JFK. This is not the Democrat Party of Harry Truman. This is not the Democrat Party of your parents. This is not your Democrat Party from even a few years ago. This is now the full-on Hassan Piker, Abdul Rahman El Sayed, jihadi communist Democrat Party. Can't even be Democratic anymore. They don't want Democrat. They want total authoritarian rule. That's what they want. And it's in the surveys here. So this is how democracy dies, with thunderous applause. Up next, my friends, apparently the WNBA just can't get out of their own way. In fact, making more trouble for themselves by banning certain types of clothing from their arenas and certain people's names from Reddit. Give you all details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. The WNBA just doesn't know how to help themselves out of the problem they created. I think the woke report for the last 3 weeks has basically just been WNBA stories because they are such morons. You have an opportunity to make money. You have an opportunity for people to watch your league. You have an opportunity to be profitable for the first time ever. And instead you go, no, we don't want that. We don't want that. We're going to go with the 0.00001% of the population that's trans that probably doesn't watch any of this stuff. And we're going to cater to them, not the rest of America. Though I will say at this point, I assume Sophie Cunningham's jerseys have sold out in multiple stores. Her shoes did from Adidas. Here's the latest insanity. The Indiana Fever visited the Atlanta Dream Sunday evening. That's the WNBA team in Atlanta, because I'm sure most of you probably just heard that name for the first time like me. It was a thrilling game between two of the WNBA's most exciting teams, according to Fox News. But what happened to a mother and daughter in the stands just feet away from the court was the biggest story of the night. No, this isn't what happened in Seattle, though it's going to sound almost exactly the same. Georgia locals, Casey Thompson and her daughter Annie, bought tickets just 2 rows back from courtside. They each wore XXXY athletics t-shirts to support Sophie Cunningham and the ongoing fight to keep women's sports and spaces female. We had our friend Jennifer Say, who's the founder and CEO of XXXY. We had her on the show to talk about this. It's really great stuff, by the way. I bought some shirts for my daughter. I bought some shirts for myself. There's one which has, it's a really great one. It's got the American flag on the back and it says Save Women's Sports. Bought that one for myself. My daughter sees it and she goes, nice shirt, Dad. You want to be the hero for your daughter and your spouse and everybody else? You go buy one of these shirts. Anyway, so one of them wore an XXXY shirt with the letters and stars and stripes, while Annie wore Riley Gaines' piece with the XX on the front and For the Girls on the back. They were able to wear the shirts with no hassle or issue until overtime. So hang on a second. You've now gone through 4 quarters of basketball and halftime. But now overtime, that's a bridge too far. That's a bridge too far. A security guard came over to them at overtime. About halfway through the 5-minute overtime period, the game's over. The game's over at this point. A security guard tried to get Casey and Annie to leave their seats to talk to him. Okay, first of all, you come to me in the middle of a game I care about during overtime. You want to talk to me now? My father likes to tell the story about the amount of times when I was a little kid and had to go to the bathroom when it was like bottom of the 9th and bases loaded kind of stuff. So Casey responded. So apparently what happened was a security guard told them that a fan was offended by their shirts. So they had to provide the Atlanta Dream Wellness and Health Night shirts or they would be escorted out of the building. To this, Casey responded by saying, biology and science is offensive, before reluctantly agreeing to put on the shirt so they didn't miss the last 2 minutes of overtime, where the Indiana Fever eventually secured a 95-91 victory. So Sophie Cunningham and the Indiana Fever won. But the more insane thing about this is they made them cover up their shirts at the end, the extra end of the game, which is bonkers crazy. Absolutely nuts that they made them do that. Insane. Absolutely insane. By the way, sitting next to them were people with like trans rights matter and they didn't make them cover up their shirts. None of that. If you're going to do this, be consistent. If you want to say no political messaging, even though XXXY isn't political messaging, but if you're going to do that, then make everybody do it. So with about 2.5 minutes left in overtime, the Thompsons are seen on the ESPN broadcast with the tan Dream shirts in hand. They can be seen talking to fans around them who said they love their shirts and showed support for them and Cunningham throughout the game. With about 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining, both Casey and Annie had put their shirts on. You know what I would have done? I would have put it on, but I think I would have tied it up somewhere. Like, you told me to wear the shirt. You didn't say cover up what I'm wearing. According to the State Farm Arena prohibited item list, clothing, garments, or signs displaying explicit language, profanity, or derogatory characterization towards any persons is strictly prohibited. The NBA Fan Code of Conduct states, obscene or indecent messages on signs or clothing will not be permitted. Well, guess what, guys? I don't know which one that actually qualifies as, because biology shouldn't be offensive, except to people who really need to have their heads examined, because that's what's going on here. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. Up next, a Washington Democratic lawmaker fined over massive ethics violations, and a hopeful Democrat busted for DUI. We'll discuss that plus a whole lot more when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up this hour on the most dangerous show on the airwaves, businesses are fleeing California. When will Washington wake up? And Secretary of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, Scott Turner, is going to be joining us to talk about if they're defunding Homeless Inc. here in Washington. But before we get to any of that, my friends, Washington State Representative Tara Simmons. You know, the ex-con who turned her life around and then became a member of the Washington State Legislature and then promptly decided to do whatever she could to get more felons out of jail. And now she's in trouble. She was fined $15,000 on Friday by a state ethics panel for improperly using her position to steer public funds to a nonprofit where she worked and trying to retaliate against the person who initiated the investigation against her. Criminal's gonna criminal. Now, my question is, doesn't Jamie Peterson, Senate Majority Leader, work for McKinstry? And hasn't their allocation gone through the roof since he's become the Senate Majority Leader? In fact, since he got elected to office? So can we go there? Or is this to throw everybody off the Jamie Peterson one? According to the Washington State Standard, the Legislative Ethics Board concluded the Bremerton Democrat committed 3 violations of conflict of interest and special privilege laws and levied the maximum $5,000 penalty for each. She must also pay the cost for the state attorneys. Ooh, that's going to be the more expensive proposition. Well, maybe your job where you funneled all that money to could reimburse you for it because they got all that money. Time out. Hang on a second. Is the government going to claw back that money from her company? Shouldn't they do that? Also, isn't this a crime? Forget the ethics violation. Isn't this actually a crime? The board dismissed 3 other allegations stemming from efforts to help a friend get a job, you mean her boyfriend, donating unspent campaign funds to a nonprofit to pay for the boyfriend's position, and working for an organization that receives state funding. Hey, Washington State Standard, why don't you say it's her boyfriend? She admitted it's her boyfriend and then said, no, he's not my boyfriend. I've never seen him before in my life. Trying to do an AOC. I broke up with my boyfriend. Hey, AOC, why'd you break up with your boyfriend? Look at me, I'm freezing my eggs. The 9-member board issued its 15-page decision Friday afternoon, roughly 6 weeks after conducting a trial-like proceeding into the allegations against Simmons. Simmons, who denies wrongdoing, said in a statement that the fine was unfair and excessive, given that she had to pursue a hearing to prove 3 other allegations were untrue. She also said she was better off compared to an earlier in the case when she had a chance to settle. She said people shouldn't be excessively punished when they actually prevail. Lady, I thought you'd have an up-close and personal look at the justice system. It sounds like you may have beaten the rap, to use your terminology, on 3 of the charges, but not the other 3. That doesn't sound like you prevailed. Simmons said she is planning to appeal in Thurston County Superior Court, where she can finally be heard by a non-political entity lacking any personal interest in the outcome of her case. Hang on. You're telling me the Washington ethics people that are controlled by the Democrats are politically biased against you? Hang on. My head's going to explode. So a far-left Democrat is claiming that the agency controlled by the Democrats is biased against her. Good luck with that in court. So Simmons is seeking a 4th term representing the 23rd Legislative District in Kitsap County that include Hansville, Kingston, Poulsbo, Bremerton, and Bainbridge Island. She serves as a deputy speaker pro tem, a highly visible role that requires frequently presiding over floor sessions. She's always there with her dog. Always there with the little dog, the service dog, she claims. It's a little rat dog. Fits in a purse. She's also garnered national attention as the first formerly incarcerated person to serve in the legislature, and maybe the first formerly incarcerated person to serve in the legislature who goes back to prison. We will see. A complaint filed in February 2025 triggered an investigation that led to Friday's ruling, which hinged on whether Simmons violated the Ethics in Public Service Act. Simmons said she rejected settlement offers in order to defend herself against charges she felt were motivated by personal animus and politics. The hearing took place in June during 3 hours of hearing testimony. We played some of it on the show. It was very exciting stuff when she started crying those crocodile tears. She insisted she's been hyper-vigilant about complying with the rules since arriving in the legislature in 2021. Doesn't sound like it. She said she was warned that as the first formally incarcerated person elected to state office, political foes would look for ways to derail her career. Are you blaming Republicans for this? Because it's a Democrat-controlled board that found this. The case revolved around Simmons' interactions with two nonprofit organizations, the American Equity and Justice Group and the Equity and Education Coalition. Two violations are related to a $1 million grant Simmons helped secure in 2024 to support an expansion of public dashboard of criminal justice data created by the American Equity and Justice Group. The group was required to subcontract $500,000 of work to a nonprofit organization that advocates for equity in technology and education to provide the public with data on social detriments that impact education outcomes. I got a question. Why can't you just look at the data? Why can't you just have a company that does data analysis, look at this stuff and go, here's what the data says? Why do you need a nonprofit that magically a nonprofit grew out of the ground at that very minute as if Jack had put the beans in the ground at that moment for the magic beanstalk. And then these nonprofits just sprout out of nowhere. Incredible, incredible, amazing. The only qualifying subcontractor, the only one, because nobody else does this insanity, was the Equity and Education Coalition. So hang on a second. She says in the legislation, we have to give it to this kind of nonprofit. Oh, what do you know? I got this kind of nonprofit right over here in my back pocket. I happen to work for them. Look how easy that. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Some things just work out. Stars just align, right? Right? In a June hearing, Assistant Attorney General Julia Eintraut, that's a unique last name, argued Simmons' interest in securing the money through a budget proviso, even if it wasn't financial, conflicted with her official duties as a legislator. Don't you know, go to one of your buddies and have them funnel you the money. You don't do it yourself. That's just sloppy. This is probably why you got caught as a criminal. You're bad at it. The ethics board agreed, concluding Simmons personally benefited because the grant funds supported continuing operations of the coalition and its ability to fund her $120,000 annual salary. Wait. You got the nonprofit a $500,000 grant. You make $120,000 a year. You just paid for your own salary for the next 5 years. Wow. Just wow. Wow. You got to give it to the Democrats. They have no shame at all. No shame. Never think they're going to get caught. The ethics board agreed, concluding Simmons personally benefited because of this. The second violation stemmed from what the board deemed Simmons' improper intervention in a dispute between the two nonprofits, the outcome of which preserved funding for the coalition. This isn't the only Democrat behaving badly. According to the Washington State Standard, authorities charged a Washington State House candidate Thursday with impaired driving that resulted in a 5-car crash in Tacoma earlier in the week. This person's not on my voter's guide, right? No, of course not. Okay. Christina Perez is accused of driving her pickup truck into a parked car. This reminds me of a mama joke. Kevin, you probably heard this one when you were a kid. Your mama's so dumb she got hit by a parked car, right? That's kind of just causing a chain reaction that left 3 other cars damaged on the 3700 block of South G Street in Tacoma near Lincoln High School, according to charging papers filed at Tacoma Municipal Court. She later failed to give an adequate breathalyzer sample, police say. What does that mean? Okay, we're going to leave those jokes alone. Perez's attorney had said she was scheduled to be arraigned on the driving under the influence charge Monday afternoon, but the hearing is scheduled for the morning of September 18th. Perez, a Democrat, is in the middle of an election campaign that could unseat Representative Melanie Morgan. Okay, I think Melanie Morgan isn't going to get unseated after this. That's just a guess, by the way. You know what? Maybe we should reach out to Melanie Morgan. I know she's a Democrat, but Krista Perez is a socialist. I think we should have Melanie Morgan on. What do you guys say? Let's have Melanie Morgan on the show, huh? She led Morgan in the primary by about 2 percentage points, running to the incumbent's left with heavy support from organized labor. Her campaign in the 29th Legislative District is one of several tests across Washington of whether progressive challenger can unseat a more moderate Democrat. Hey, Who hasn't won a primary and gone out and gotten wasted and then crashed into a parked car? Right? Who hasn't? Who hasn't? Her defense attorney said Friday he hopes we can stay focused on an important campaign. Yes. The campaign to stop drunk driving. Okay, time out a second. There's no excuse to drunk drive in this day and age. There really isn't. I understand back in the day you might have said, well, the car and how do I get home? Uber. It's called Uber. Use the Uber, right? So here's his defense. You ready for this one? Okay, here we go. This is great. We're talking about a DUI. It's not like we're talking about felony murder here. Oh, okay. Okay. So since she didn't kill anybody while driving drunk, that's okay. but you know, it's just a DUI, right? Says no matter what happens in this case, there's still homeless people. We need to get off the streets. Wait, what? This is her attorney speaking right now? Well, the homeless people will get off the streets real quick if they see a car coming for them. Oh, no, probably not. They're in the middle of the Fetty fold. He says, I hope we can stay focused on what's relevant. You know, normally these things are my client's innocent and they will avail themselves of the Justice Department. Here it's, oh, no, she be drunk. She did it. But let's focus on the issues at hand here, right? So Perez hasn't responded to direct requests for comment. Morgan couldn't be reached either. You know what? We're going to get Morgan on the show. I'm reaching out to her tonight. After the crash, an officer noted Perez smelled of alcohol, appeared confused. She confirmed she was driving, but reported she didn't know what had happened. Yikes. Her Chevy Silverado was nearly on top of another car, and her driver's airbag had been... Okay, do you know how fast you have to be going to go up on another car? Do you know how the impact angle... I mean, unless it's a Corvette or something low to the ground, he just drove up on top of it. She told investigators she'd had a glass of wine at a glass. Sure. When they asked how much, the paper said she told them to ask winery staff and appeared offended by the question. She then rated her level of intoxication at a 4 on a scale of 1 to 10. You have to be drunk. You have to be really drunk to admit you've had any alcohol at all to the police officer. I'm not drunk. You're drunk. Sorry, it's too crazy. It's too crazy today. So the officer asked her to perform a field sobriety test to see how impaired she was. She repeatedly told authorities she didn't understand. Perez said she wanted to go home before taking the test, but officers told her it wasn't an option. She eventually declined to participate in the sobriety test. You know what I just realized? Somebody should file a public disclosure request for the body camera footage of this incident. I know what Hoffman's doing tonight. Let's get some body camera footage. This is going to be great. I want to see her go. You go ask the waitress. You go find out how much I had to drink. Oh, this is going to be great. Due to Perez's odor of alcohol, noticeable mood swings, slurred speech. Well, let's be fair, right? I mean, didn't this happen in Olala? I mean, that's just trying to pronounce the town, right? Red eyes and unsteady gait. They must have been scrutinizing her gait. Tacoma police arrested her. At Tacoma Police Headquarters, she reportedly agreed to provide breast samples after speaking with her attorney. Yep, has it been an hour? Has it been an hour? How many drinks did you have? Do the math. Okay, carry the one. Yeah. You can do it now. She was booked into Pierce County Jail, where she spent 6 hours before being released. Perez works for the state as Strategic Partnerships Manager for the Department of Commerce. Well, that wasn't very strategic of you, now was it? She mounted a failed bid for Tacoma City Council last year. She has repeatedly attacked Morgan, her campaign opponent, for her vote against the state income tax on high earners that the legislature passed earlier this year. All right, we're definitely having Morgan on the show. All right, she's a Democrat we can talk to. We are going to reach out to this nice lady and get all the dirt, or rather just find out about the other campaign. By the way, you think your vote doesn't count in this race? I don't know if you've seen this one. According to the Washington State Standard, 2 votes separate 2 Democratic hopefuls as they battle for a chance at an open Senate seat in Northwest Washington. Since election night, Bellingham Port Commissioner Michael Shepard has seen his lead dwindle over fellow Democrat Emon Collins by Thursday night's tally. Shepard was ahead 12,856 to Collins 12,854. Nearly 49,000 votes have been counted so far. Collins was down 2.5 percentage points on Tuesday. More votes will trickle in over the next... I hate this. I hate this. It's election day, not election month. You guys do realize it's August 17th and the primary is on what, August 3rd? We're now 2 weeks out of this thing and you're going to have another week of counting? Wow. Maybe this will get the Democrats to want voter ID and some secure elections and all that. Collins said Thursday he's confident he'll overtake Shepard when all the votes are counted, noting late votes favor grassroots progressive campaigns like this one. Why is it they always favor them? Wonder why. Says, I feel energized. I've been trying to just keep myself busy with months of deferred home maintenance. I'm happy to be patient while they work through it. A machine recount is required if the difference between the two candidates is under 0.5% of the total ballots cast and fewer than 2,000 votes. To trigger a manual recount, candidates have to be separated by fewer than 150 votes and 0.25% of the total votes. Either candidate in November will face Republican Erica Credit, a psychologist and Blaine School Board member. She picked up 44.7% of the primary vote. They're running to represent the 42nd Legislative District covering North Bellingham, rural Whatcom County, and Ferndale, Linden, and Blaine. So we're going to be following all this with great interest. But one last story out of the legislature, because we're just having too much fun with legislature insanity today. According to the Washington State Standard, Jalen Scott is set to become Washington's first openly transgender legislature. She could also be one of the two members of the Democratic Socialists of America in the legislature. I really have a question. I want to reach out to this person, too. I want to have him on the show and say, so you agree with the jihadis in the DSA because they want to kill anybody who's transgender, anybody who's LGBTQIA. Do you agree with that? Is that something you support or do you believe in all that? Quote, I think it's important people see themselves in me. No. Scott, who leads the Black Trans Advocacy Organization, the Lavender Rights Project. I have so many questions. Will represent the 37th Legislative District in South Seattle. Wait, is that my district? Well, hang on, what's going on here? She's received over 88% of the primary vote, facing only a college student running as an independent. No, that's not my district. She feels being the first is a heavy burden. Sometimes you feel like you have the weight on your shoulders or maybe on your heels because you're carrying these sort of hopes, dreams, wishes, and concerns. Scott will be the first black openly trans state lawmaker. Did we check enough boxes? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. Okay. This is performative nonsense. I don't see anywhere in this article anything about her actual policies. Trans. Oh, we got to get down to the bottom. Okay. Proposed a payroll tax on large employers. Oh, great, fantastic. So we want more taxes. We want the DSA insanity. Oh, this is going to be great for everybody. This is just going to be fantastic. I'll have that college kid on the show. Let's have that college kid on the show. See what that person's all about. Maybe we could stop this nonsense. It has nothing to do with being trans. It has everything to do with being a member of the DSA. And that's why they're pushing this person through. They make these weird alliances that you don't realize you are going to be the first people the DSA tries to get rid of. The jihadis try to get rid of. They use the left to infiltrate. They use the left because they know they are dumb. That's how they infiltrate things around here. Insane that people can't see it for themselves. The other thing people in Olympia can't see for themselves is what their taxes on businesses are doing. When we come back, my friends, you are going to see that California is having the same kind of business exodus we are. Washington should be learning from that, but instead, they're replicating it. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Have you ever been on the studio tours down in California? Not just Universal Studios. Yeah, you got the backlot tour. It's more of a ride these days. It's not like in the old days where the entire place used to just be the tram tour and they had a lot cooler stuff. And now it's kind of, well, commercialized. You don't get to see the awesome stuff. I could give a better tram tour. I've been on that thing so many times than the people who give the tram tour these days. So I've been to the other ones as well. Warner Brothers, their tour, pretty cool, by the way. So first of all, their backlot, the city, you look at it and you go, oh my God, it's Metropolis from Lois and Clark. You recognize it right away. It's that Metropolis. But also, they have this big studio space. All the Batmobiles are there. And all this other, it's really awesome. All the different Batmobiles. And then they have this other thing, which is all the Harry Potter stuff. It's great. Really, really great. The Paramount tour, okay, well, Jay Inslee's not joining us today, but it's kind of like that. It's okay. It's fine. Shall we just say it's fine? Well, also, how many movies are they really making in Hollywood anymore, right? Paramount CEO David Ellison is reportedly considering moving CBS News out of New York City as the company's legal fight with its state attorney general over its proposed $110 billion acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery heats up. Sources close to Paramount told the New York Post that moving CBS would give Ellison greater leverage against the California Attorney General-led coalition of 12 states looking to block the merger. So they might move CBS News out of New York because they employ roughly 1,200 people worldwide, with a large portion based in the Big Apple. A massive relocation would no doubt have a major impact on jobs and the city's media industry. Now, what if they say, yeah, and hey, Attorney General Bonta, you keep up this nonsense, we're pulling Paramount Studios out of California. Let's find some state in the Midwest somewhere. I don't know, somebody who's kind of a red state that would like to have all this kind of stuff there. We'll do that. They'll take our tax dollars instead of you guys. That'd be crazy. CBS Broadcast Center in Manhattan could also be sold for billions of dollars, according to a source close to the company. Yeah, but then you need somebody who's actually willing to buy it. And as we're seeing with the housing market here in Washington, that's not necessarily a certain thing. The potential move comes after Paramount's board approved a plan to relocate its Hollywood studio operations out of California if Bonta refuses negotiations. By the way, at this point, if LA has such an overcrowding problem, all you got to do is turn that studio space into a giant homeless encampment. I mean, think about it. If you've got the Western backlot, some of the homeless people may go, I want to live in a more Western town. And then you've got the sci-fi area. Yeah, we like space. We're going to live over there. Say, wouldn't this be nice for the homeless people? Wouldn't that be great? And those facades of houses would be so much better than those tiny homes, wouldn't they? This sounds wonderful. Those who are Star Trek fans, you can go live in the old sets. It'll be great. Paramount remains hopeful that it will reach an agreement with Bonta by October 1st. But if the merger is delayed beyond that date, Paramount will reportedly face an eye-watering $7 million per day payment under the terms of its agreement with Warner Brothers Discovery. You know, if I was them, I would say, yeah, we're going to do this, but we're not going to take the chance on you guys anymore. We're still going to move everything, even if we get the merger, because it just shows how vindictive these guys are. Now, with major companies now talking about leaving New York and California, they're not the only ones. Oh, that's just Hollywood, Ari. Oh, Hollywood can be filmed on a green screen anyway. This one here, according to Fox News, doing business in the state of California sucks, says Hill Davis, a California businessman. He told the outlet that the frustration ultimately drove him, who's the CEO of Digital Brands Group, more than 1,300 miles to Texas. The apparel and e-commerce company relocated its headquarters to Round Rock, just north of Austin, leasing roughly 70,000 square feet of warehouse and office space as it expands its collegiate sports apparel business. Davis said the sprawling Texas facility cost roughly the same as the company's former space in Vernon, California, about 5 miles south of Los Angeles, and rent was only part of the equation. He pointed to California's high cost of living, long employee commutes, and the rising cost of doing business, including defending against lawsuits. He says you start to add all those things up, it doesn't work, it doesn't make sense, it's too hard. The relocation comes as California wrestles with a much bigger question about whether the state's costs, taxes, and regulations are driving away the businesses and wealthy residents it relies on. I wonder if that's happening in California. This sounds really familiar to me. almost like something we're going through in Washington. Here, wait. Tell me if this sounds familiar. I'm just reading from Fox News here. That debate has intensified around a proposed one-time tax of up to 5% on Californians worth more than $1 billion. Well, when all the billionaires leave, they're going to go after the millionaires. And when all the millionaires leave, because Hollywood, Warner Brothers, Paramount just picked up and left, who do you think they're going to go after next? Just like here in Washington. Supporters say the billionaire tax could raise billions for healthcare and other public. Doesn't this sound familiar? I've heard this somewhere before by asking the state's wealthiest residents to pay more. Opponents warn it could instead send major taxpayers packing and take future tax revenue with them. California is already seeing taxpayers and their income move elsewhere. Los Angeles County led the nation in taxpayer losses in the latest IRS data with a net 17,496 tax filers, leaving for other states and taking nearly $1.9 billion in income with them. You know, there's that website that's been keeping track of all the companies that are moving out of Washington. I think it also tracks, I have to go back and double check, how much revenue they're taking with them. I wonder how much that is. I mean, Bezos took basically $1 billion with him when he left. It badly impacted the Washington state budget. What do you think is going to happen to everybody else? Now, the only thing that's their saving grace right now is that Washington's crazier than California. So a lot of the people who moved here from Silicon Valley are actually going back down there for tech because they realize that we've lost our minds up here in Washington. What does it say? That you're crazier than California. That's Washington state. Now, what's funny to me is now they're saying, oh, no, there's not going to be a big stampede. It's not going to be a huge amount of people leaving California. Wanna bet? If these taxes pass, that's exactly what's going to happen. That's exactly what you're going to see here in Washington. It's what you're already seeing happen here in Washington. If only we had a couple states that could show us what it would be like if we imposed these stupid policies. Oh, wait, you can in California. And as opposed to doing anything about it, Washington lawmakers go, that's a great idea. Let's try the same thing to wreck our economy as well. Absolutely insane. Up next, my friends, from the Trump administration, Secretary of Department of Housing and Urban Development, Scott Turner, is going to be telling us now they've cut off the money to Homeless Inc. down in California, is Seattle next on their list? We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. California is, with beyond a reasonable doubt, one of the worst places for homelessness in the entire U.S., and yet they've spent billions and billions of dollars claiming that they're trying to fix it, and they have only made the problem worse. Well, now the Trump administration is saying we are cutting off that flow of cash because you guys are misspending it, and if you actually want it, you have to do things that actually end drug addiction, actually end homelessness. Joining us now to discuss on the KVI studio line, Secretary of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the one and only Scott Turner. Thank you so much for being with us today, sir.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Such a pleasure. So why don't you tell me exactly the kind of stuff you guys were seeing in California that tipped you off that they are not good stewards of federal money anymore?
Well, in this last year in our country, 1.5 million people were homeless or living in taxpayer-subsidized housing for the homeless neighbors in our country. And that's a 67% increase from 2013. And in our country, previous to the Trump administration, we've been calling that a success. Well, that is a complete failure. The Housing First model is a failure. It was set forth in 2013 to eradicate, to get rid of homelessness, where you just essentially warehouse homeless men and women and families and create a homeless industrial complex, while yet people are dying inside of apartments, inside of empty buildings, vacant buildings, all while using taxpayer dollars. And so when we came in under President Trump at HUD, our team, we said we need a new play, a new playbook, a different way to approach our continuum of care and not just house people, but literally get to the root problem of homelessness. And as you alluded to, that's drug addiction, it's mental illness. And so how can we put wraparound services around people, get them healed and treated and then transformed and back to a life of self-sufficiency? And so that's kind of the context, that's the history behind it, and that's us looking forward. We got to change this paradigm from housing first to treatment first. House them, treat them, get them healed, and back to a life of self-sustainability, because this is taxpayer dollars, over $4 billion that we're talking about, and so we have to have results for the American people.
Now, you aren't just talking about failure. You're talking about waste, fraud, and abuse that you guys found as well. What kind of stuff was there?
Absolutely. So in L.A., California in itself literally has led our nation in homelessness over the last 2 decades. And L.A. is really the epicenter of homelessness with mental illness, drug addiction, and the fraud and the abuse that we found in LAHSA. So we cut off the funding to LAHSA because we found that, they couldn't even account for 2,300 housing spaces that they were responsible for. We also found that they couldn't even keep up with people that were leaving empty hotel rooms because they weren't having accountability or accountability measures in place. Again, this is taxpayer money. LAHSA has received over $1 billion in the last 5 years. That's $1 billion of taxpayer dollars with no results. And a couple of years ago, we found that the former CEO of LAHSA, they gave a contract to her husband's employer, which goes against a federal conflict of interest. And so obviously that CEO is no longer there. There was a gentleman in California, a gentleman, $23 million that he stole from HUD because he was supposed to be performing homelessness services to give them 3 meals a day to house the homeless. But instead, this guy, Alexander Sufer, he bought a $125,000 Range Rover, luxury home in Beverly Hills, about $7 million, vacation home in Greece, about $500,000, and he was flying private. This is not, and the name of his organization was Abundant Blessing. The only thing abundant there was what he was receiving off the backs of taxpayers and not treating whom he was supposed to be treating, and that's our homeless neighbors.
So many people who are listening to this right now are saying, this sounds so familiar, whether it's in Seattle, Washington, whether it's in King County, whether it's anywhere else in Washington State, whether it's in Minneapolis. This is the same kind of stuff we're hearing across the country. If you're just joining us, we're talking with the Secretary of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, Scott Turner. Now, you guys didn't just say we're cutting you off. You guys said, here's how we fix it. And you released a toolkit to say, here's the best practices we recommend. Can you give us a summary of what's in it?
Absolutely. And so you're right. When we went to L.A., we wanted to shine a problem on what's going on as it waste, fraud, and abuse as it pertains to homelessness. And so when we went down to San Diego, Secretary Bobby Kennedy and myself, we said we're going to release, with HHS and the White House, we're going to release now this toolkit, best practices, if you will, for state and local governments, for COC, Continuum of Care organizations, faith-based organizations, on how do we help homelessness inside of our cities. And the first thing, we're going from housing first, which has been the model, the failed model for the last since 2013, to now treatment first. We have to get to the root of the problem, drug addiction and mental illness. And so our toolkit will help us to identify core elements of programs that have been outstanding as it pertains to helping homelessness and drug addiction. Also, it promotes accountability and transparency, and it measures real outcomes. Or we want outcomes. HUD is no longer going to fund or say success is how much money goes out the door, how many units of homeless are filled. Success is going to be how many people do we get treated and transformed to a life of self-sustainability. And so this toolkit will help state and local governments around the country to do so. And it also serves to help as a playbook, very simply put, a playbook for these organizations to treat homeless men and women and families to get them to a life of self-sufficiency, and to bring in our faith-based organizations that really were stiff-armed, if you will, during the Biden administration. Faith-based organizations have been serving the homeless long before the federal government. And so this toolkit of best practices will be a tremendous resource for those that are caring for our homeless neighbors.
I was reading it over the weekend, and it's all the stuff we've been talking about for years: common sense, wraparound solutions to treat addiction, to actually solve the crisis on our streets. It's a very well done piece of work. In the last few minutes we have with the Secretary of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, Scott Turner. So I've alluded to this in our conversation, but we have the same problems here in Seattle. We have the same problems here in King County. I believe we're ranked right behind Los Angeles, above San Francisco with these problems. Is HUD currently looking into doing the same thing across the country in cities like Seattle, where they see the federal dollars are going to all the wrong places and the problem's only getting worse, especially after here in Seattle, we know that billions of dollars have been spent, and the problem went from roughly 2,000 people on the streets to 16,000 people on the streets.
Absolutely. And you said it, under Vice President Vance, under JD, the president appointed him to lead this task force against waste, fraud, and abuse. And I would add corruption. And that's what we're finding across the country. American taxpayer dollars that are hard-earned taxpayer dollars. There's a lot of fraud and corruption. And so not only in Seattle, but it's in L.A., in Boston, in the Virgin Islands, and places around our country. It's an above-all approach across all agencies, all cabinet members. We have been tasked to go after this waste, to go after fraud. And I would say to your listeners, man, it really is a new day under President Trump. No longer will we turn a blind eye to corruption and fraud. American people matter. This is an America First president, an America First administration. The American people matter. And their hard-earned taxpayer dollars that they entrust to the government to take care of these necessary services like homelessness, they expect and they put their trust in us that we will do right by them. And so that's why we're going after this with no holds barred. Those that are committing crime and criminality against the American people, we're coming after them to take care of the people that we're supposed to be taking care of, and to use these resources for their intended purpose.
Secretary Scott Turner, who is in charge of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, thank you so much for taking the lead on this. Thank you so much for trying to reform this very, very broken and corrupt system. And thank you so much for joining us today. We really do appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Ari. Great to be with you.
Great to have you. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. There's a new headline out, which is bad news for Bob Ferguson. Apparently, his office intentionally delayed corrections on climate data it was supposed to release. Is anybody surprised by this at all? Hang on, this has got to be coming from Fox. No, not from Fox. Not from Daily Wire. Not from Post Millennial. Not from KVI. Who's this? From Axios? Axios has us out there? Hang on, let me go to my little black book of the right-wing media conspiracy. Axios is not in here. According to Axios, Washington state officials are ready to fess up. They'd vastly overestimated how much the state's cap-and-trade projects would cut greenhouse gas emissions. Oh, shock. You mean the Climate Commitment Act, which just spiked our gas prices, wasn't actually going to do anything to address climate change? That was just a giant slush fund? Oh, surprise. They prepped a news release to correct the error in December, but the fix got held up by Governor Bob Ferguson's office. It didn't go out until January after a conservative critic blogged about the inflated numbers. Conservative critic. Hang on. Is that me? Is that Scott Myers? Is that Scott Myers? Is that Todd Myers? Is that Brandy Cruz? Is that Jonathan Cho? There's only like 3 or 4 of us in town. I mean, really, it's got to be one of us, right? Ferguson's tight control over what state agencies can say to the public left inaccurate climate data out there for weeks, even after officials had already caught their mistake. The holdup is one of several tied to media policy Ferguson's office instituted last year, which requires most agency press releases and communications with reporters to be approved by the governor's office. So this is the same thing we've been talking about forever, and now Axios is mad about it too. Oh, who wrote this frag? Who is this? Oh, it's Melissa Santos. You know what? I've actually been meaning to touch base with her. I'm not even kidding, because she does decent work when I agree with her. I mean, she does decent work for Axios. I should reach out. I should say, hey, Melissa, that's a fabulous article you just did. Come on the show. We won't talk politics. I just want to hear more about the article. The Ecology Department, which released the faulty November estimate, emailed the governor's office December 20th asking for permission to send out a correction on December 22nd, according to emails Axios received through a PDR. Given the size of the error, we believe we need to publicly acknowledge and take responsibility for it. At least twice that weekend, Ecology Department spokesperson Dustin Turpening asked the governor's office to approve a draft news release. But Ferguson's lead spokesperson, Brianna Ho, responded Sunday that she and Ferguson's chief of staff, Shane Esquibel, would want to review the release again before it went out. Hiding your climate data because you don't want to give up your slush fund, showing it didn't do jack squat. Yeah, didn't see that one coming. Here's another one I didn't see coming. So my sister-in-law told me she took, I forget it was my niece or my nephew, one of them to the doctor. You know, they're going off to college or whatever. And she asked the doctor, so where's all your business coming from these days? And he said the death scooters. Now, what I find funny about that is the doctor called them death scooters too. Now, remember they told us, this would be so much better for the climate because you're not driving in cars and you're driving the death scooters and they're electric and you take the death scooters and you'll be fine. Yeah, what about the human cost? I think this is just part of the plan to depopulate society. All right, I have ridden a death scooter once and a death bike twice now, okay? So it's a grand total of 3 times on the death machines. And I will say every single time I took to the death machines, and I'm a pretty good cyclist, I will say that, I am not getting better at them. And in fact, now that they have these bike lanes with the cars, no wonder deaths have gone up because you're not really that protected. They put you in the middle of traffic, and that zigzag you have to do along the waterfront with the railroad tracks, that's an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, I've used these quite a bit.
Have you now?
I have the scars to prove it. Yes. And several of the other people that work here have used them as well.
Yes.
And some of them have scars to prove it.
Yes.
But at least, with that situation, they can only go I think they cap out at 17 miles.
Something like that.
Yeah. But a lot of this stuff that's out there, and I know a lot of kids, they're getting their parents to try and order this stuff that's available online at various places. They're effectively dirt bikes with electronic engines, e-powered dirt bikes. They'll go 40 or 50.
That's why they're trying to ban those suckers. I mean, think about it this way. When I had my kids' go-kart, which we were using on city streets because I found a loophole where how old you have to be for these things, that sucker went 40 miles an hour. And I was letting 12-year-olds drive that thing. I mean, insane as a parenting thing. I just let them drive around the block mostly and up to synagogue. But
Yeah.
it's really, that's why Harborview is seeing this massive spike. And this isn't just the Lime bikes. It's what you're talking about, the stuff that people order online.
But the Lime bikes are easy to get cocky with because you're like, oh, I've ridden these enough and they only go this fast and they can't. But they're dangerous, man.
They really are, especially when you're riding with traffic. Got the scars to prove it, just like Action Park. When we come back, final hour free for all. Your thoughts, your calls, your texts, your stories, plus the latest on what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz. Is it about to become the Strait of America? Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call the KVI backup studio line at 206-644-6006. That's 206-644-6006. Or text us at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Well, a lot of you had a lot of feedback to Secretary Scott Turner's interview. This one here, this one from Lee, he says an awful lot of great ideas on today's show where he talks about treatment first, where he talks about actually getting people off the streets and holding them accountable and ditching the whole housing first idea. And if the money isn't working, cut it off. I mean, common sense. This isn't really hard stuff here. The 425 says, it's great to hear about treatment first approach to ending drug addiction that has led to homelessness. However, my money is on judges blocking and denying this approach. In fact, we know that Nick Brown and crew have already filed to try and stop this approach because they're worried about losing all this money. But they're also up to other dirty tricks, by the way, like what they're doing to our friend Andrea Suarez. Andrea Suarez runs We Heart Seattle. We know that they are one of the very, 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 very few outreach organizations is actually doing anything to help solve the drug and addiction and mental health crisis on our streets. It's not a homeless crisis. Well, now the government's going after Andrea. Andrea received a letter in the mail from the Department of Labor and Industries saying she wasn't complying with their guidelines. Yet if you go to their website, there are no guidelines about cleaning up homeless encampments. Andrea posted this video earlier today.
I keep saying this, that this is the worst I've ever seen the parks. King County, our taxpayer dollars literally fund party packs. You get foil, you get needles, you get cookers, you get tourniquets, you get all of this handed out that end up in our parks. If anything, OSHA should be investigating King County, allowing our parks to be overtaken by used needles, dirty foil, and the amount of human waste that's littered our parks. This is actually worse than the health risks associated with foil. This is human waste. That's the worst thing that will spread disease in our parks and shared spaces. I mean, gauze, blood, poop, pee. I've probably picked up 100,000 bottles full of urine, and they're just littered in our park.
That's in Seattle. She doesn't work elsewhere. She works in Seattle. That is what is in our parks. So why do you think they're going after Andrea? Because Andrea is exposing that without taxpayer funds, just reliant on donations, they are more effective than anything King County is doing. In fact, they're cleaning up King County's mess. In that video, when Andrea says a party bag, a party pack, it's everything you need to do drugs. And right there on the front of it, it's the symbol for King County Health with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s face smack dab on it. You know, I have to go back and revisit it. The I Had a Dream speech. I don't think it said, I had a dream that little white adults and little black adults would be overdosing together on the streets of Seattle. I don't think that's what it said. I have to double check. I don't recall it all from memory. Insane. Now, the crazier thing is when you go to the Labor and Industries website, there's nothing here for how to clean up a homeless encampment, so I reached out to Labor and Industries. And just a few minutes ago, I actually got a statement from them. So you want to know who's trying to take down Andrea? Who has the most to lose from reporting Andrea or Andrea being successful? Homeless Inc. Because then what any common sense lawmaker, if we had any in Seattle, would say to Homeless Inc. is, how come homelessness is getting worse under you, and this lady who doesn't get any taxpayer funding is doing a great job? Maybe we should give the funding to her. Or maybe we should just cut your funding. So, according to a public affairs manager for Labor and Industries, L&I, has 2 open inspections in response to a referral, meaning a report that came from someone other than an employee or an employee representative, alleging improper handling of drug paraphernalia by workers. Hang on a second. So somebody reported Andrea Suarez. I think I might have to file a public disclosure. Look at all these public disclosures I have to file this evening. I'm going to have my night filled with filing public disclosures. Who ratted out Andrea Suarez for something she's not doing wrong? I shouldn't even say ratted out because she's not doing anything wrong. How can you say she's doing something wrong if you don't have guidelines of what she's doing? You don't have a section. Okay, so hang on. I'm just going to go through Labor and Industries website for a second here. Electrical, amusement rides, contracting. Okay. I don't see homeless cleanup anywhere over here. Okay, let's keep reading the email here, shall we? The report initially went to the Department of Ecology. Okay, stop. Shut up. Shut up. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear you guys talk about ecology and you're littering the ground with plastic needles, metal needles on the ground. You went to the Department of Ecology with this for the lady who is cleaning up the parks, not King County, which is giving out all the needles that are littering the parks and all the tin foil, the plastic needles, the metal in the needles, the crack pipes. That's a lot of plastic. For people who claim they don't want plastic stuff and climate change and all that, they sure give out a lot of plastic and metal, don't they? This report went to the Department of Ecology, not about Andrea cleaning this stuff up, and maybe we need to report Homeless Inc. and King County and Seattle for contributing to this problem. No. This is crazy. Absolutely crazy. Since we have jurisdiction over workplace safety and this involved employees, they sent it over to us. Andrea doesn't have any employees. When we receive allegations with significant safety and health concerns, we take those seriously. Oh, dear. Okay. This is clearly an attempt to get Andrea out of the business. That is clearly what this is. So right now you go, wait a second, why haven't they issued violations on Plymouth Housing? Plymouth Housing, anytime they are in charge of a facility, 911 calls go through the roof. We've seen the videos of how nasty Plymouth Housing locations are. Somebody call OSHA. Call Labor and Industries on them. You know what? I'm going to reply to this during the break, and I'm going to say, hey, Mr. Public Affairs Manager, I have a question for you. Has anybody ever filed any of these reports on the Downtown Emergency Services, Lehigh, Plymouth Housing, any of these organizations? Because they're tiny homes. No way those things are to code. The fact that they have one tiny home that is set aside in these villages as the hot box for all the drug use. Are you kidding me with this? Are you kidding me with this nonsense? And you're reporting the lady who's trying to clean it up? You people have absolutely lost your minds. Lost your minds. Clearly, this is because Homeless Inc. sees Andrea as a threat. So they're going after Andrea because she's more successful than them. You know what they say, if you're taking flack, you're over the target. That's what this is about. So you know what I think we should do? I think we should have a little fun today. For those of you listening at home, don't do this while you're driving. Do not do this while you are driving. Do not do this while you are driving. Do not do this while you are driving. Do not do this at red lights. I think what you should do is look up Labor and Industries. And I think you should file complaints on Plymouth Housing, on DESC, the Downtown Emergency Services, on Lehigh, because we've seen the conditions of those tiny homes. If you need proof, just send them Jonathan Cho's videos. Just find Jonathan Cho, go to his page, type in Plymouth or Lehigh or what DESC, and it'll pop up, and you will find it. And let's just start filing complaints. Let's just file complaints against all these organizations which are giving people the ability to kill themselves, giving them needles, giving them spoons, giving them foil, giving them everything to inject poison into their bodies. Or how about the moldy tiny homes? I think that's what we should do. I think we should just have a campaign to flood Labor and Industries with complaints about Homeless Inc. And then, if they just keep investigating Andrea, but don't investigate Homeless Inc., we'll be able to show the double standard. I think that's what we should do. Don't you? I think that's 100% what we should do. If you end up finding anything or filing it, let me know. ARI@KVI.com. That's ARI@KVI.com. Because I want to see what kind of stuff you guys come up with. Send it to me. Really. A lot of our listeners are retired, sitting at home. So if you need something to do to fill your day, this is a great way to fill your day. Just go on the Google machine, look up Labor and Industries, file a complaint, and just look up some of the Homeless Inc. housing providers around here. Because I don't think any of them are any good. Clearly, this is an effort to take down Andrea. It's obvious. That's exactly what this is. but that this went through the Department of Ecology first? Why isn't the Department of Ecology looking into the pollution from spontaneously combusting RVs? Right. RVs don't spontaneously combust. Why aren't they looking into the amount of waste that's poured on the streets, the human waste in our parks that Andrea was just talking about? Why don't they discuss any of that? Why don't they look into any of that? I love how they don't say pollution anymore. They just say climate change, climate change, climate change. Because if they said pollution, they would have to address what's happening on the streets. It's not just what's happening in the homeless Inc. You've been out to Georgetown recently in Seattle? It's next to the stadiums. It's south of Soto. That's where the Somali truckers just change their oil in the middle of the streets and just pour it down the nearest sewage drain. That's where they just pour it out onto the ground. I had an office there for years. I watched this happen with my own 2 eyes. Saw it happen all the time. This is the kind of stuff that goes on. Where's the Department of Ecology for that? No, instead, going after Andrea Suarez, who's trying to clean up the mess made by King County. This is insane. After the show today, I am for sure filing public disclosure requests. I am sure asking them if anybody has reported Plymouth Housing, any of these things. And then you know what we should do? Maybe we should just bypass labor and industries. Maybe we should go to OSHA. Let's get the feds involved. Yeah. Man, I can't believe it. Look what's happened to me. I'm a conservative, and I'm begging for federal involvement. I'm begging for federal intervention as a conservative. What has happened to me? Well, that's the problem when you have one party controlling the entire state. You have one-party rule, and this is the problem you run into. With one-party rule, they could do whatever they want. They could target whoever they want. Look how they said no to a press pass for me, for Jonathan Cho, for Brandy Cruz, just because they felt like it. Look how they are filing PDC complaints, going after, investigating Let's Go Washington and Brandy, claiming it's some kind of undocumented illegal campaign contribution because she's talking about issues she cares about on her podcast, because she believes in repealing the income tax, because she believes in protecting girls' sports, because she believes in parental rights. They're saying that because she's giving her opinion, we need to punish her. Now, you may be wondering, Ari, why are you bringing this up? We discussed this months ago when this first happened. Cairo 7 and Fox 13 decided they hadn't done this story yet, so let's redo it right now. And then they're saying, oh, there's an investigation into Let's Go Washington. You know why they're doing that? You know why they're doing this to Andrea Suarez? So people will say, I don't want to give money to a group that's under investigation. I don't want to volunteer for a group that's under investigation. What if I get under investigation? I don't want to do that. These are the dirty tricks they pull to try and smear somebody's reputation. It is us against them, my friends. And because we are constantly exposing what they are up to, they are trying to stop us. Today, this is great, today. So what happens? I got a public disclosure request back from Bob Ferguson's office. What happened? You remember a couple weeks ago, you had the Bite of Seattle shooting. And last week, we found out that City Council member Deborah Juarez said there was a 27-minute Zoom conversation, where you had you had Bob Kettle, the Seattle mayor, the governor of Washington, and a few other people on that call, including Katie Wilson. And she never turned her camera on, and she never spoke during this discussion. Not at all. So I follow this public disclosure request, and I get it back from Bob Ferguson's office today, and it says there are no responsive requests. No responsive requests means you're not doing this at all. It means you guys weren't involved in it. You don't have a recording of it. I find that hard to believe. I find that very, very hard to believe. But for those of you who use Zoom regularly or Teams regularly, usually the person who hosts the meeting is the one who has the recording. So I take this no responsive requests, and I even write in it, it sounds like Bob Ferguson is trying to throw Katie Wilson under the bus. Well, the funny thing about this is somebody from Bob Ferguson's office reshared it over on Facebook. Literally reshared it over on Facebook. So Bob Ferguson is now sharing my post on Facebook, which cracks me up. You know, that's some new social media intern who probably just lost their job right now because of this, because they shared it, because they very, very quickly deleted it. Very, very quickly. But it seems like he's trying to throw her under the bus. That's what it seems like right here, to be like, I had nothing to do with that delay in communication. I had nothing to do with it whatsoever. Leave me out of it. This isn't me. They're trying so hard, desperately, to prove they had nothing to do with it. That's what they're doing right here. In fact, it's getting worse for Katie Wilson by the day. The other things with Katie Wilson is, there was another shooting in Pioneer Square over the weekend, and the cameras weren't turned on during that. So yet again, we have some shooters on the loose. We don't know where they are. Cameras could have been helpful in finding them, and they're not turned on because of Katie Wilson. Where's Katie Wilson? Katie Wilson is dancing with the rapper Y2K. Have you seen this video? It is embarrassing. It makes Elaine from Seinfeld look like a good dancer. I know I don't have rhythm. I don't have music. I don't have my girl who could ask for anything more. I know I do not have these things. So you do not see me trying to dance with rappers because I will look like a fool. But not Katie Wilson. Katie Wilson is out there in her first public appearance since destroying the whole response to Bite of Seattle. She's out there dancing with a rapper, and it's beyond embarrassing. This one, Robin Lakewood, says Fox News showed Mayor Forehead getting down and dancing. I wouldn't call that getting down. I would call that awkwardly shifting. Awkwardly shifting on her feet. Yeah, I'll tell you something, guys. This is crazy. This is who's in charge of us. And they're vindictive, and they're mean, and they're mad. You want to fight back against these guys? Here's what you can do. You can file the complaint with Labor and Industries against Homeless Inc. You can also, this recall thing, I was driving through my neighborhood this weekend. I saw an official recall sign for Katie Wilson. I don't know who's making those things, but I laughed. It was pretty funny. You can do that. But also something else. You can donate to these organizations because what they're counting on, they need your donations. But what Ferguson and crew are hoping for is you stop donating to these organizations because they're under investigation. Let me tell you something about under investigation. Under investigation, you could be completely exonerated. There could be nothing behind it. But once you say investigation, the allegation is worse than the crime. So, this one here from the 253. Ari, I think we need to start looking at who is incentivizing our politicians, city and state leaders to destroy our cities and states across the nation. Real easy. Look at their campaign contributors. Look who's doing that. You will find out exactly who it is. Look who's volunteering for them. Look who's endorsing for them. You don't even have to look very hard to see who that is. Right here, 360. Donated to We Heart Seattle. Spread the word to donate. See, exactly. That is how you fight back against this insanity. That's how you do it. Speaking of insane, by the way, when we come back, my friends, did Jared Kushner actually sit down with Hamas over the weekend? And is the Strait of Hormuz about to be renamed the Strait of America? We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, if you missed any part of the show, we have the Ari Hoffman Show Reloaded coming up from 6 to 7 p.m. today, sponsored by our friends over at Wade's Eastside Guns and Bellevue Indoor Range, Puget Sound's premier destination for everything firearms. You can also subscribe to the podcast at whatever your preferred podcast platform is. So, Iran has kind of dropped out of the headlines, but the ceasefire, which hasn't really been much of a ceasefire, that expired over the weekend. So now what's the plan? Well, it looks like President Trump is tired of putting up with these guys, and he's about to make the Strait of Hormuz the Strait of America. This is what he said today in the Oval Office.
I just think it's a great idea. Yeah, I mean, we control it. We control it with the blockade. We have a blockade. We control it with the blockade. And I like the idea of declaring it a territory.
Why do that?
We have total control over the strait. Now, they can be a nuisance. They can put a mine in the water, and people don't like having mines hit their billion-dollar ships, you know, et cetera. But the blockade has been very effective. And, you know, we're taking out, now maybe that will stop, or maybe it'll open up even further, but we're taking out millions of barrels of oil a week. If you look at the kind of numbers that we're doing, the strait is open, and the oil prices are coming down, and they will continue to come down unless we decide to do something far more drastic than we're doing. Iran is in big trouble. They have 300% inflation. The country's a mess, and the military is totally defeated.
So multiple things can be true at once. The military can be totally defeated, and you still have these radical jihadis going out there trying to blow up ships. That can be true at one time. It can be their economy is destroyed, but the little bit of money they have in reserve or whatever else it is, they're using to pay the radical jihadis or finance terror elsewhere. But something tells me that their funding for terror has dried up because they have no money left. Their economy is totally in shambles. Over the weekend, Jared Kushner met with leadership from Hamas. Why would leadership from Hamas be willing to talk to Donald Trump's son-in-law, who also happens to be a Jew? Hamas don't like the Jews very, very much, but they met with him over the weekend. So what came out of that? Because Kushner also met with the Board of Peace about Gaza. This is what he told Trey Yangst over at Fox News.
Today we had a very, very good meeting. We were there for almost 4 hours with him and his team going through all the different details. I think there were some valid concerns that they raised that we were able to address. And we were able to go through some of the misunderstandings and misinformation that's been out about it as well. I mean, certain things like we're very committed to the fact that we have a plan to rebuild Gaza, but we will not allow Gaza to be rebuilt until the demilitarization occurs. Nobody wants to put more money into a place that's gone on for so long until if it's just going to be taken over by terrorists or blown up again. We're also not going to restrict Israel's right to defend itself if there are any imminent threats, and so we had to clarify what that means. We could be seeing progress, in as much as in as little as 30 days, hopefully on starting to take some of the weapons out, and hopefully filling in some of the tunnels as well in the next 60 to 90 days as well. So progress could come quite soon, but we do need cooperation from both sides, and we're going to hopefully get through. But we've made a lot of progress to get here. For Israel, we think this is a win-win situation because if Hamas actually gives over the weapons and the tunnels, willingly over the next 60 to 90 days, that obviously would be the elimination of a huge security threat for Israel, almost an unthinkable achievement. And if they don't follow through now on their commitment, everyone will see that they're not genuine about peace, and then Israel will have a lot more support from the U.S. and others to go and finish the job in the appropriate way.
Well, now the problem is we've heard this kind of stuff before. Oh, why is it going to work this time? It all comes down to, is Hamas going to stop being terrorists? And given the fact that that's their entire identity, I'm not sure that's actually going to happen. If it happened, would it be incredible? Absolutely. But a terrorist group willingly giving over their arms to the Jews they've sworn to wipe out? I'm a little skeptical of that. Personally, what I think you start doing is start selling land in Gaza. I'm not kidding. You guys lost a war. Here's what you do. You start selling land in Gaza. I bet you there's a ton of people who want beachfront property and can make it the Riviera of the Middle East. It'll be the greatest place you've ever lived, the Riviera. It'll be amazing. The best part of the Middle East will have a Trump golf course and a Trump hotel. I love hotels. I love golf courses. I love construction. I think that's how you solve this. That is how you fix this. Free market, capitalism, right? What else came out of these meetings?
You met with Hamas officials yesterday. Do you think they're genuine about peace?
I mean, they said all the right things, but obviously it's very, very hard to trust, a terrorist organization that that committed these terrible atrocities. But we had a very cordial meeting, and they said all the right things. And so we're going to give them a chance to perform, but it's going to have to be based on actions and steps. And I hope it will be true.
CJD, that's how you do it. Actions and steps. Trust but verify. Not, let's just give them a whole bunch of money and unfreeze their economy, and then maybe they'll open the strait. No. It's, you want to have peace? You want to stop being blown up? If you're the leadership, hey, guys, nice to finally meet you. Now that we've got pictures of all of us standing together, we know what you look like. See that drone up there? It's got your name right on it. See, that's how you do it. Trust but verify. Me personally, I don't think Hamas is ever willingly going to give over their weapons, but who knows? We will see. I am very, very skeptical of this. Very skeptical. But for me, it's been 3 years. Finish the job. Let Israel finish the job. The U.S. shouldn't have to finish the job in there. Let Israel finish the job. With regard to the Strait of Hormuz, why is it so hard to get our Arab partners? And you say to them, free oil, guys. Free oil. Go get the oil. UAE, you've been in the Abraham Accords. You behave well. Bahrain, Morocco, go get the oil. Then you don't need to put U.S. boots on the ground, and we can end this thing. We'll give you air support. We got pretty airplanes. They're pretty good at that. But you guys go get the oil, so that way we don't have to put boots on the ground. I don't think it's that hard. Up next, my friends, Andrea Suarez from We Heart Seattle will be joining us to discuss these insane allegations and reports coming out of labor and industries. That, plus a whole lot more, you're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Our government is out of control. And by that, I mean the Washington state government. It seems like they are trying to settle scores. It seems like they are trying to destroy opposition. And it seems like they are trying to take down anybody who does a better job than them. Their latest target is not me, it's not Brandy, it's not Cho, it's not Let's Go Washington. It's actually our friend Andrea Suarez over at We Heart Seattle. She joins us now on the KVI studio line for our Newsmaker Spotlight, brought to you by our friends over at Renewal by Andersen, Western Washington windows and doors for every home. Andrea, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Such a pleasure. Let's start from the beginning. Last night, you posted a video on social media announcing that Labor and Industries had cited you for improperly cleaning up homeless encampments. I don't know what's more disturbing, the fact that they cited you for that, or that Labor and Industries is now saying you are improperly cleaning up homeless encampments, but they have no problem with the people who give out needles that are the things you're cleaning up in the homeless encampments. Just making sure I got that right.
Yeah, it's as ridiculous as it sounds. The government hands out needles and foils and cookers and tourniquets and Narcan cartridges to homeless drug addicts to use in our parks. And then we go and properly collect this garbage, including this paraphernalia. And somehow we're the bad guy. And I tried to tell them, I think you've got the wrong organization under here. Are you sure it was We Heart Seattle? It's just the optics alone. I mean, it's all so bad. It's an overreach, and the hypocrisy of here's the foil, here's the needles, without proper instructions to even the people who use them, how to dispose of them, let alone an everyday citizen who may step over the foil, the needles, which are in our parks, on our sidewalks, everywhere. I mean, they're everywhere. And I am picking up according to public safety guidelines. You know, pick it up, put it into a sharps container, put the foil in a plastic bag, put the garbage in a garbage bag, take it all to the dump, boom. Like, we've been doing this for 6 years, millions of pounds of trash. We've been lucky to be unharmed from these ambulances going by my house. I apologize.
That's okay. It's Seattle. It's a kind of common occurrence around here.
I mean, there's so many. I went for a walk this morning, and there's so many vials of Narcan just strewing our streets. Like, there must have been a bad batch or something last night. So my question back to them is, what about the everyday citizens as well? Like, if you're concerned that I'm one employee of We Heart Seattle has been improperly picking these up, then what about the rest of society? I mean, what I hope that this ridiculous thing leads to is accountability by everybody who's been a part of this problem, right? Now we can leverage this to say, stop handing this stuff out in the first place. And what about everybody else's safety? Like the employees of the city of Seattle that walk through 12th and Jackson. I know you've been up there, and you see these employees walking through open air markets with fentanyl and methamphetamines inches from their face while they pick up foil and needles. That's not an occupational safety and health concern that isn't already under investigation. I mean, when does this end? That seems like this would end is when one of these employees would get hurt. You know, it's terrible.
This is crazy, because basically what Labor and Industries is saying is they're saying that if I take my kids to a playground and I find junk on the ground and I get rid of it because I want my kids to be able to play, and I do that, I clear that up, I could now be violating their standards. And here's the other thing, Andrea. I went to their website. I couldn't find their standards for clearing homeless encampments. Did I miss something on their website?
No, and we went down to the needle exchange at the public, quote, health department on 4th and Blanchard and asked them to produce a flyer on how to properly collect oil and Narcan and things, and they couldn't produce a safety guideline out of there either this morning. So there is no information for anybody on how to handle any of this. I mean, yes, we know how to pick up a needle, but it's so bad. It's just the optics and the overreach, and then I just think it's a political hit from somebody that's just, they don't realize I know how to leverage these things very well. Like, we're going to change policy. We're going to get the media involved. And I'm not even public. I'm like a privately funded. I mean, I guess maybe that's the difference. I keep saying, well, I don't even take taxpayer dollars to go and pick up our parks, but maybe because, all these other taxpayer funded employment, like the City of Seattle Unified Care Team, the contractors that are all out there handling all this, they seem to be turning a blind eye to their practices. But mine, it says the hazard and location description, improper handling and collection of hypodermic needles and fentanyl paraphernalia. And then I got hit with a long list of documents I'm supposed to produce, like produce your walk around safety inspection for the past 6 months. And I told the lady, I said, my walk around safety inspection is our park. Would you like me to have documented? Oh, I actually do document it every single day. I make a social media post about how destroyed our parks are and how unsafe they are. So my safety manual is online. Here's my Instagram handle.
I think you could actually do something else. You could say, going through your website, there are no standards to which you are holding me accountable to on labor and industries. Why don't I help you write them? Because clearly you don't have guidelines of your own.
There you go. And I mean, we actually had that conversation with Miss Emily Brown. And I said, I guess at the end of the day, if we can figure out how to properly pick up fentanyl foil because of this conversation and update the standards, which would be impossible to probably abide by because the issue's so rampant. I mean, you pick up a needle, you walk around the block, there's another needle on the ground. Same thing with the open air drug markets. I mean, they clean Lewis Park, you come back the next morning, it looks like they did nothing, spending millions and millions and millions of dollars of cleaning up the city. We spend fractions of that, and it doesn't ever get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
They got to get a handhold on this.
And they're also giving out the stuff that's making it bad in the first place. So it's crazy to me that they're saying, we made this mess. Now you're cleaning it up, and we're going to penalize you for that. Oh, and we don't have standards we're holding you to. So, yeah, I mean, that's basically the summary of the case. Andrea, give us your website one time if people want to donate and help you out with what you're going through right now and help you continue the great work that you do over at We Heart Seattle.
That would be great. This is a great time to give to weheartseattle.org is our website. WeHeart spelled out Seattle.org. Stocks, donor advised funds, this is a great organization to support, and we will continue to pick up garbage and needles and drug paraphernalia. But most importantly, we're doing that as a direct action to drive better policy and to take people who are ready to treatment and get people off the streets and on pathways to self-sufficiency. So, and we're supporting the federal administration's policy on treatment first as well, and made my heart smile when Secretary Turner went through his little drug paraphernalia bag recently and said this has to stop. And I'm like, yes, it does. So then we won't have to penalize the little groups that are trying to pick it up. So thanks for the support and the awareness on this. Really appreciate everybody supporting We Heart Seattle.
Yeah, always our pleasure for all the great work that you do. Help out our friends over at We Heart Seattle, especially because they're being targeted by Bob Ferguson and the Washington state government. Plus, it seems like Homeless Inc. We got a whole lot more to talk about today as the show continues. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And don't forget, if you missed any part of the show, the Ari Hoffman Show Reloaded is coming up next from 6 to 7 p.m., brought to you by our friends over at Wade's Eastside Guns and Bellevue Indoor Range, Puget Sound's premier destination for everything firearms. So that way you can get caught up on all new content from today that we played earlier, but that way you won't miss anything. You get all caught up on what you may have missed. Now, some fun news out of the White House today. You remember we told you a few weeks ago about young American hero, 16-year-old lifeguard Ryder Williams? He's the lifeguard who courageously saved a 10-year-old boy on a California beach from drowning. So President Trump had Ryder Williams, the 16-year-old, and Nathaniel Ray, the 10-year-old he saved, in the Oval Office today. Now, here's a little bit of what the audio of that was like.
And it's an honor to be with Ryder Williams, who is a 16-year-old lifeguard, California, the Santa Cruz area. And I understand he was a winner right from the time they first saw him as a lifeguard. There's a lot of training, a lot of work. And he saved this young gentleman who I had a long talk with. I said, would you have made it without him? And he said, not really, right? Not really. It was trouble. Yeah. So you're going to have a long and beautiful life. Thank you. And I just thought we were all watching. Everybody watched and got a lot of publicity because of the ferocity of the waves. I've never seen waves. I mean, that was sort of violent. We were just discussing, and at certain times of the year, mostly like right around now, the waves get very rough in that area, and they're swirling, and if you don't know what you're doing, it's going to be tough, or if you're small, if you're young. So I just want to congratulate Nathaniel Ray for coming through an ordeal. That means you're going to have good luck in life. You know, that's called good luck. I want to say hello to your father, and came along for we invited them to the Oval Office and to the White House. After this, if you'd like, we're going to have them brought up to the Lincoln bedroom, where you see the room of Abraham Lincoln. That's pretty good, right? And also your sister. It's really nice.
You get to go in the residence? Is that now part of the tour? You didn't used to get to go up in the residence. That's pretty awesome. I didn't know that's on the tour now. However, during this event, Ryder Williams got to speak also, and here's what he said.
So first of all, a lot of people are very inspired by what you did. Can you tell us what was going through your mind at those dangerous moments, and what would you like to do in the future? How has this experience as a lifeguard shaped you?
In those dangerous moments that we have, we always try to fall back on our training. We are trained so well by many to handle that situation as best we can. So I really am just thinking about how to get the boy out of the water as fast as I can. And for shaping my future, I want to be a firefighter in the future, hopefully go through paramedic school. And
he's off to a good start. We'll give him recommendations. We may have some good recommendations.
I got to say, that's a really well-put-together kid, and eloquent kid, and confident kid. And the beach training that they did back when I was a beach lifeguard was insane. I can only imagine what it is now, but good on him. I'll say something else, though. I'm a little envious of this kid, and let me tell you why. He's got a whole formal dress uniform to go to the White House. We got a T-shirt and a whistle. We had to bring our own sunscreen. We had to buy our own red shorts when we worked there. I got a T-shirt that said beach on it, just so you knew I was staff. The guys at the pool got the fancy lifeguard ones with the red cross on it. He's got a full Parks Department uniform there. A little envious of that. Pretty awesome. But anyway, if you haven't seen the video, you can find it over on social media of 16-year-old lifeguard Ryder Williams saving 10-year-old Nathaniel Ray. You see the rip currents. You see the waves. It's insane. This young man deserves every kudos they give to him. So really, congratulations, and what an amazing role model for teenagers these days who spend more time looking at their phones than doing anything like this. There was a water rescue here in Washington, by the way. According to Como News, a routine trip near Orcas Islands turned into a water rescue Friday morning after a rowboat began taking on water and could not maneuver on its own. Around 9:45 a.m., the Tillicum, that's one of our very own Washington State ferries, responded to a call from the Coast Guard about a small craft in the water near Orcas Island that needed help. According to Washington State Ferries, the agency said the rowboat was rapidly taking on water and unable to maneuver on its own. The Tillicum crew changed course, launched a rescue boat, and went to the boaters in distress. The crew was able to get the people to shore, and no medical intervention was needed. Washington State Ferry said its crews practice rescue drills each week and are regularly called to assist boaters, paddlers, and divers in distress. Now, if you've ever been on a Washington State Ferry, odds are, if you take them regularly, you have at least once stopped and been part of those drills. I remember the first time it happened, I had deliveries. I had my truck on the ferry, and I'm like, oh, my God, do they have a real rescue? Because then I'm not going to be as mad about this. But if this is a drill, I'm going to be really mad because you know what it's doing to me? Turned out it was a drill, but still, I'm like, okay, safety first, safety first. Yes, you see those things happen from time to time on the ferries as they're crossing. The agency thanked the Tillicum crew for its unwavering dedication and bravery. So thank you to everybody in the Washington Department of Transportation, everybody in the Washington State Ferries who actually did that. Good on you guys. Really good on you guys. My brother-in-law actually was out on the boat with me yesterday, and he was saying, when can you go help somebody? How does that work? And I said, if somebody puts out a distress call and you're the nearest ship, you go help them. And think about that Seinfeld episode, the Good Samaritan rule. If you don't help them, you don't want to end up in jail like the crew from Seinfeld. You don't want to end up dancing like Katie Wilson / Elaine. You don't want to end up doing that. And you don't want to end up in jail like the crew from Seinfeld because you didn't help somebody out. Yeah, that's actually a real thing, by the way. Rules of the road, rules of the water, Good Samaritan laws. If you are near somebody and you can help, go help them out. We're going to help you guys out because coming up next is the Ari Hoffman Show Reloaded for anything you may have missed today, because that's going to do it for us today, my friends. But we will be back tomorrow with more insane stories and more exciting guests. You've been listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.